Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Shritama and today we are going to start with a new chapter from our CBSE class 10th biology, that is control and coordination. Now let's have a look, or let's get through the definitions of control and coordination. So control, what is control? Control is the power of restraining and regulation by which something can be started, or it can be stopped, or it can be slowed down. So what is control? Control is the power of regulation and restraining. So control is the power of regulation and restraining. It is the power of restraining and regulation by which something can be started, or it can be slowed down, or it can be stopped. While coordination, it is the working of various agents of the body in an organism. It is the control, or it is the working of various agents in the body in an organism in a proper manner to produce an appropriate reaction to a stimulus. This is very important. In coordination, the whole body works in such a way to produce an appropriate reaction to a stimulus. The whole organism or the whole body works in such a way to produce an appropriate reaction. To the stimulus is called coordination. So this is the basic difference between control and coordination. Control is restraint and regulation to actually do something, to start, initiate, slow down or stop something, whereas coordination is to produce an appropriate stimulus to any reaction. First, we'll start with the control and coordination in plants. I have just told you about control and coordination, and I told you that we'll first start with the plants. When we talk of the plants does not show any instantaneous movement as we see in the human beings or in the animals. It does not move from one place to another. It cannot express its feelings. It cannot respond to anything. It cannot talk. It cannot show any hand movement, any feet movement, nothing it can show. Only we can see some kind of movement of the plant towards the stimulus or away from the stimulus, and that too it is being shown in form of growth. It starts growing towards that particular part, or it does not grow towards that particular part. That is the stimulus. That is called the stimulus. And takes some time. It takes some time. Not like the instantaneous, like for us humans, for us. So when we talk of plant movements, we can divide it into two parts. We can basically or broadly divide into two types of plant movements. One which is a directional plant movement, and it gives a growth, or it is a dependent on growth, means it gives the growth is formed in a particular direction. And another is independent of growth, and it is non-directional. It does not does not occur in any particular direction, and that too not for growth. Here it is dependent on growth, and that too for a particular direction. It is the directional movement of the plant. It takes place towards the growth. It takes place due to the growth. And if it responds positive to the stimuli, it shows a positive stimulus. If it is negative to the stimuli, or it is in the other direction of the stimulus, it is a negative stimulus. If it is in the direction of the stimulus, it is a positive stimulus. When the plants grow towards the sunlight, that is towards the stimulus, that is a positive stimulus. When the plant, if supposedly you have kept a plant the plant is kept inside, there is a wall, the plant cannot grow, the plant stems cannot or branches cannot come out through that. We see the plant doesn't grow but in that particular place. The other side of the plant starts growing. That is, it responds, the stimulus is the wall or the hindrance for the growth, so it doesn't grow towards that side, it grows towards the other side. Other side means it grows or it shows a negative stimulus. And this is independent of growth. It is non-directional. It is the movement is neither towards nor away from the stimuli. It is also independent of growth. It is also independent of growth. The common example or the best example for this kind of movement is the touch me not plant, or scientifically it is called as Mimosa pudica. Mimosa pudica. Now what happens when we touch the plant, instantaneously the leaves droops. The leaf droops off. So what is it? It is just showing an instantaneous plant movement. It does not show any growth movement, and it is not at all in the direction of the stimulus or against the direction of the stimulus. So it is independent of growth and it is non-directional, but the movement is quite faster than compared to this movement, which is dependent on growth, or it is a particular directional growth. Okay, then we'll move to what are the particular dependent on growth. What are these? Means this directional growth or particular dependent growth can be again classified into different types. We'll talk about that. So when we talked of the directional growth or dependent on growth, we told that the plants respond to the stimulus, that plants show some response to the stimulus. It may be toward the stimulus, that is positive stimulus, or away from the stimulus, that is negative stimulus. So based on the stimulus, the plant shows some kinds of movements, but these movements are not literal movements what we talk about. These are movements in the form of growth. So when we talk of the stimulus, now there can be different type of stimulus which the plants receive, or which the plants get to see, or which the plants can understand. Now what are the stimuluses? First stimulus can be phototropism. Phototropism. When it is phototropism, what do we understand? It is the stimulus of sunlight. The word photo means it is some kind of light. The next is geotropism. When we talk of geotropism, this provides another type of stimulus, that is the stimulus to gravity. That is the stimulus to gravity, how the plants respond to gravitational pull. How does the root respond to the gravity? How does the stem respond to the gravity? And we'll talk about the stimulus geotropism. Then comes chemotropism. What is chemotropism? The word chemotropism means, chemo means it is related, something related to chemical. Something related to chemical. There are some kind of chemicals which are being liberated in the plants in some point of time, which also produces some kind of stimulus in the plant system or the plant coordination system. And according to this chemotropism or the chemical stimulus, the plants show some kind of movements. The next is hydrotropism. The name suggests hydro means water. That is presence of water. Last we'll talk of thigmotropism. Thigmotropism means touch. Thigmotropism means the stimulus of touch. So we'll discuss about all these stimulus in detail one by one, so that we can know about how each of the stimulus actually affects the plant coordination and also promotes the growth of the plant in that particular direction of the stimulus or in the opposite direction of the stimulus. Now let us talk one by one. When we talk of phototropism, what is phototropism? Phototropism is sunlight. Supposedly, when we place a plant towards light, we see the plant slightly tends to bend towards the sunlight. If we keep it for 2-3 days, we'll see if the sunlight or the space through which the sunlight is coming is very narrow, the plant tends to bend towards that sunlight. So we call it is showing a positive tropism. It is showing a positive stimulus. So the stimulus of sunlight, it shows a positive stimulus to the sunlight. Next is geotropism. When we talk of geotropism, what happens in that? Supposedly, if we keep a potted plant like this, this is the soil, potted plant like this. After some days, we'll see that this plant bends like this. That is, it grows like this. Plant plants to grow like this, while the roots, it starts growing, it comes out of the pods like this. So what it shows, that due to the presence of the gravity, we always know that the stem moves towards the opposite direction of the gravity. It grows opposite to that of the gravitational pull. That is what it shows. Always the plant or the stem shows negative geotropism, negative stimulus to the stimulus of geotropism, whereas root shows a positive stimulus to the stimulus of geotropism. Is it clear? The same plant, the stem shows a positive geotropism or positive stimulus, whereas the root shows a negative geotropism or negative stimulus. The rest I will again discuss in detail separately, because here we have to tell little more about the tropism. So sunlight is clear, and we have also discussed about the geotropism or the gravitational tropism. So we have already discussed about phototropism and we have discussed about geotropism. The third stimulus we talk about, that is chemotropism. I told you that it is the plant response to the chemical stimulus. It is the plant response to the chemical stimulus. I have told about chemotropism. It is a plant response to the, basically it is the chemical stimulus that the plant responds to. In this particular stimulus, what happens, during the pollination, or during when the pollination of in a flower takes place, the anther, the pollens that is released from the anther, during the time when the pollens are released, even this the gynoecium or the female portion, they release a particular chemical. They release out a particular chemical, due to which the pollen tubes that is formed, it forms striate, and it comes and meet into the ovule. It comes into the ovule, and the anther, which is, or the pollens which are there for the flower, the pollens move through this pollen tube and reaches the egg and reaches the ovule of the flower and fertilizes the flower. This is due to the stimulus, or this is due to the release of chemicals through which helps in the development of the pollen tube, and also it helps in the movement of the pollen tube towards the ovule of the flower, so that the fertilization takes place. So this happens, such a kind of stimulus happens in case of chemical stimulus or in case of chemotropism. This is a positive chemotropism, or it's showing a positive stimulus. Next is hydrotropism. The plant responds to the stimulus of water. The plant response, we know that every plant responses is always favors the water. Wherever they find water, it will spread their roots towards that, so that it can get a sufficient amount or sufficient supply of water. That is always, it shows a positive hydrotropism or positive response to the stimulus. But there is also an example of negative hydrotropism. If you remember, or if you know of the mangrove forest, which is nearly a swampy area where there is always standing water, what happens, the roots are unable to breathe. The cells in the roots, I told you, if you remember in respiration, every cells of the need to respire. They're unable to take in oxygen. They're unable to take because they're always submerged in water. So what happens? Some special structures in the roots are developed, which comes out from the water. If this is the water, if this is the swampy area, and these the trees in the swampy area, since they have many branches, the leaves, you should see the leaves are very bright green in color. They have a leathery texture. The leaves, the trees are awesome, and the leaves and the plants look very beautiful. And what happens, because the roots are unable to breathe, because there is continuous, always there is water. The water is always present. The water is stagnant. So what happens? Some special structures are developed like this. Some special structures get developed, and these structures are called the pneumatophores. Pneumatophores, these are the structures special structures from the roots which show negative hydrotropism or show negative stimulus to water. Okay, this is the example of negative stimulus to water. The third is thigmotropism. The plant responds to the stimulus of contact or touch. We know many plants that may how will you describe this? That many plants are there which have tendrils, which does not have a very strong stem. They have weak stem. So they need some support, they need some touch, they need some contact to grow. So what happens when you put a stick, when supposedly it is a climber type of a plant. So when you put a stick or a contact or support, what happens? These tendrils go and spiral around this support. So these first, they can feel the stimulus of this support. These tendrils come in contact with the support. They can feel it, the stimulus, and what they do, they show a positive stimulus to this particular support, and that's how they start twinning towards the support, and this shows a positive stimulus to the stimulus of contact or for touch. So finally we can summarize all the stimulus or the movement of the plant towards the growth or directional movement towards the growth. That is, we can summarize it into 5 types of stimulus that we have already talked about. First is phototropism, or the stimulus of light, that is bending of the shoots towards the light or the light source. It can be towards sunlight also or any other light source also. Next is geotropism, that is the stimulus towards gravity, bending of the roots towards the soil or the ground. Next, third is chemotropism, or the stimulus due to the presence of chemical, that is growing of the pollen tube towards the ovule for fertilization in a flower. Next is hydrotropism, or water, movement of the roots towards the available groundwater. And finally is thigmotropism, that is due to the stimulus of touch or contact. It is movement of the tendrils of a climber towards the support that is provided for the growth of the plant. So after having a knowledge, or after knowing about the tropism, the 5 types of tropism, we'll talk about the coordination in plants, which is carried out by the phytohormones or the growth regulators. Now, phytohormones or the growth regulators can be divided into 2 types, that is growth promoter and growth inhibitor. Growth promoter, we can understand it promotes the growth of the plant, but growth inhibitor, sometimes we might feel that why is a growth inhibitor necessary? Because growth inhibitor does not promote the growth, whereas we all want a living being to grow. But for a plant, sometimes it may so happen, it is in such a situation, it is in such a circumstance or environmental condition that it is not favorable to grow. Supposedly, it is very cold, the temperature is very low, or the soil conditions is not optimum enough, or there is very much scarcity of water. Then the plant should inhibit its growth. The plant, in order to maintain or sustain through that situation, should inhibit the growth, should use or expense the energy as less as possible. So that times these growth regulators come into action. There are three growth promoters which we know or which we'll be talking of. The first is auxin, followed by gibberellin and cytokinins, whereas there are two growth inhibitors. First is ethylene, and second is abscisic acid or abscisic acid, or we also known as ABA. So we'll talk for each of these auxins or each of this growth promoter and growth inhibitor in detail. Let's find out or talk about. First, we'll start with auxins. So we'll talk about the first growth promoter, that is auxin. Auxin is synthesized in the shoot apices or the stem apices. In the stem apices, it is also found in the root and the shoot apices also. What happens, auxins helps the plant to bend towards the light. Auxins, we always told in phototropism, we have told that the plant bend towards the light source. This is caused by auxin, because when there is a presence of a light source, then the plants get a more concentration of auxins towards the shady side of the plant, and this auxins helps in the stem elongation. As the concentration is more on the shady side or this side, the cell elongates more. Here the cell elongates more rather than this part of the plant or this part of the stem. So what happens, the plant tends to bend towards the light, and this we finally or gradually see in the outcome that the plant is moving towards the light. So this is mostly about auxins. The functions of auxins are: the first function, it helps in the stem elongation, stem and root elongation. It also helps in the development of the root in cuttings or root initiation in cuttings. It promotes cell division. It helps in parthenocarpy, that is, it helps to develop fruits without the seeds, and it also causes apical dominance, that is, the auxins moves downwards within the stems. It moves downwards into the stems, and there they inhibit the outgrowth of the auxiliary buds. They inhibit the outgrowth of the auxiliary bud, causing apical dominance. So these are about the functions, and this is all about auxins that we are going to study. Next comes our growth promoter, that is gibberellins. When we talk of gibberellins, it stimulates or it helps in the elongation of stems, and that is elongation of stems. It helps to elongate the stems, and it makes the leaves bigger in size. The leaves also grow. We have seen when we see the plant, we see the leaves will be first smaller in size and slowly it grows bigger in size. So what happens? Gibberellins does the work of both elongating the stem, that is making the stem longer, and also the leaves longer, or the leaves elongation or expansion of the leaves. Now, let's come to the functions. It is used in the elongation of genetically dwarf varieties. That is, it helps in the elongation. It helps in elongation. Any plants which might have a stunted growth, it helps into the growth of the plant. It helps the plants to grow longer, taller in size. It helps the seeds to germinate. Sometimes what happens, the seeds are not able to germinate even if they are put in the favorable conditions. That is, the seeds are told to be dormant. Even if they are under all favorable conditions, they are not able to get germinated. Gibberellins help in such germination of such kind of seeds. It helps in breaking of seed dormancy. Also, and helps the seed to germinate also. Promotes flowering in some plants by breaking the bud dormancy. So we can understand that seed, bud dormancy, these are all helped by gibberellin, or with the help of gibberellins we can break out or remove the dormancy in buds, in seeds, and all these things which are very tiny in structures. However, last will be that gibberellins and auxins together can control the growth and development of fruits. Both of them, auxins and gibberellins together, it helps in the growth and development of the fruits. This is all about gibberellins that we will be talking about, or we have to remember. If you have to not know the functions by heart or by line to line, you will just remember the keywords for each function. So what is it? That is elongation of genetically dwarf, seeds to germinate, breaking seed dormancy. seeds to germinate, breaking of seed dormancy, breaking of bud dormancy, and growth and development of fruits. So this one will be enough. If you remember, then you can formulate your own sentences and write the functions. Okay. Now we are going on, next we are going to talk about cytokinins. Cytokinins, they actually act together along with that of auxins, and they help in cell differentiation. Their function is they promote cell division, and also you can tell of cell elongation. They help in secondary growth. Secondary growth means it is not only elongation, that is not a vertical elongation, but it also helps in the horizontal elongation. Horizontal elongation means it helps in to develop the volume of the plant. That is, it makes the plants a bit fatter in size. It gives a volume, it makes it thicker in size. It also suppresses apical dominance. It retards or delays the aging of the plant. It prolongs the life of fresh live crops like cabbage, spinach, etc. It prolongs the life, means I told you it delays the aging, means it keeps the plants fresh. It keeps the plant fresh. Aging means slowly we'll understand the plants have aged out, means it will become yellow in color and slowly it will die down, it will become dry. But cytokinins helps in keeping the plants fresh for a long time. They are mostly used for the leafy vegetables like that of cabbage, spinach, coriander, etc. And they are also used for keeping the flowers fresh. Anything, you should remember that anything to keep fresh means we use cytokinins. Anything to keep fresh. Fresh means we have to keep it, it delays aging. This is one of the major or very important function of cytokinins, which we have not seen in auxins or gibberellins. That they do is it keeps or it delays the aging, it delays aging in plants also, not only in plants, in leafy vegetables, and also it keeps the flowers fresh. So this is morely about cytokinins. Now we have already completed auxins, gibberellins and cytokinins. These are very important growth promoters and you should learn them very nicely because these are important from your exam point of view also. Next, we'll start with the first growth inhibitor, and this is ethylene. Ethylene is the only gaseous plant hormone. We have to remember that if we are asked the gaseous plant hormone, ethylene is the only gaseous plant hormone and it is only secreted when there is a high concentration of auxins. Understand? So it is the only gaseous plant hormone or phytohormones, and high concentration of auxins induce ethylene formation. What are the functions of ethylene? It promotes ripening, the ripening of the fruits. What happens immediately when we pluck the fruit or we take the fruit from the plant, there is a rise in the ethylene level. There is a gaseous, it is a gaseous hormone. I have already told you it is a gaseous hormone. The rise of the ethylene takes place and quickly it involves in softening of the fruits and thus helps in ripening. It causes aging. Aging means it causes aging of the plant, even the fruits, the leaves, the flowers. It promotes abscission of flowers because it causes aging. It also helps in the abscission, that is removal, or the once it becomes aged or once it is old enough, the removal of the leaves, that is the leaves falling down, even the flowers, fruits, once it dries off, it becomes old, it dries and it falls off. And it inhibits the stem elongation. It inhibits stem elongation and also its formation helps in the formation of adventitious roots. We have to remember that ethylene, the first most important function of ethylene is it helps in the ripening of the fruits. It helps in ripening, it helps in plant abscission, it helps in senescence, or it helps in the abscission of leaves, fruits, flowers, etc. It retards or it inhibits stem elongation. It does not allow stem elongation, and it also helps in the formation of the adventitious roots. So these are the functions about ethylene, and then we'll finally talk about the last growth inhibitor, that is abscisic acid or the ABA. So this is the last phytohormones or the plant hormones we are going to talk about, that is abscisic acid. Abscisic acid is also known as the stress hormone, and it is a growth inhibitor and it works against the promoter hormone of auxins and gibberellins. In the questions, if you get that tell the functions of the stress hormone, you should understand it is about the abscisic acid, because it is also known as stress hormone because of one of its function. What happens that when there is a water stress condition, abscisic acid is secreted and it helps in the closing of the stomata, so that extra water or the water inside the plant is not lost to the process of transpiration. So this is why it is called a stress hormone, because under stress condition the plant secretes the hormones so that the plant is able to maintain or to survive through this stress period. And it also inhibits the growth. As you understand, it is a growth inhibitor, or it is an inhibitor hormone, so it will inhibit the growth. It increases seed and bud dormancy. It reduces transpiration. It stimulates the formation of the abscission zone. Abscission zone means it forms the abscission zone, means if a leaf is about its discolored or its age, it secretes, abscisic acid is secreted so that the abscission zone gets secreted and the leaf is made to fall off from the plant. And last is it causes senescence. So this is the functions, and this is about abscisic acid. You should remember that abscisic acid is called the plant hormone. Ethylene is the only gaseous hormone of all the 5 hormones that we have talked of. This brings us to the end of the plants part of the control, under control and coordination. I had talked about the plants part, means I had talked about the growth, independent growth and the dependent growth, the directional, non-directional growth, the plant movements, how they respond to stimuli, and what are the types of stimuli that a plant responds to, like that of phototropism, hydrotropism, chemotropism, thigmotropism, etc. And I also talked about the different plant phytohormones, or the plant growth regulators you can talk of, or plant hormones, out of which we have 3 promoter or growth promoter hormones, which are auxins, gibberellins and cytokinins, and 2 growth inhibitor hormone, they are ethylene and abscisic acid. This is all about the plants in the chapter control and coordination. If you learn all this, whatever I have taught, this is enough for the chapter. Even for the functions, if you don't remember all the functions, remember 1 or 2 the important functions of each and every hormones that I have talked of. So we have come to the end of the control and coordination in plants. That first part, we have come to an end. And if you have all liked my video, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. And if you have any doubts, any questions, please put into my comments box. I will surely come back to it and reply to the same question.